What's up everyone, it's a Knife Side here, and today I'm going to be doing my first impressions on one of my newest knives. This is the Protech Malibu. And this is a knife that I got at Blade Show, and if you are familiar with this knife, it was a knife that came out, I believe, last year in 2020, and it was a knife that won a lot of other YouTubers' best knives of 2020, and so I would probably say that this has been one of the most hyped up knives of the past year and still on to now. It doesn't really sit on the shelves at retailers. It sells out pretty fast, so I was happy to be able to pick one up, but I'm going to be talking about it, seeing if it lives up to the hype that I've heard from it. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. For this first impressions, I purposely didn't sharpen it yet. I usually like to sharpen it before, like I did with this. I will talk about that when we get to the blade, but first let's do some size comparisons. First, this is the other knife that I picked up at Blade Show, the American Blade Works Model 1 V6. I think I'm going to come out with this first impressions video first. I'm recording both of them at around the same time, so yeah, there's that. Let's do the Microtech LUDT. Sorry, there's a hair on there. Around the same size. One thing the Protech Malibu does good is it packs a whole lot of blade length in the whole lot of handle. Like here's that, they're about the same, and then look at those handle differences. Very good job on the blade to handle ratio from Protech. I'll throw up a PM2 here. So the Malibu is significantly smaller than the PM2. If you look at the blade lengths though, a little bit longer on the Malibu. That's something I always like to see. You know, a small blade length doesn't really bother me just because I don't feel like I'm ever going to notice the difference from a 2.5 inch cutting edge to a 3 inch cutting edge, but it still is nice to see companies maximizing the amount of blade length and the amount of room that they have. Let's do the Sabinza sandwich here. We got large on the bottom and small on the top. So comparing the small with the Malibu, the Malibu's a little bit bigger here, but looking at the blade length, the small Sabinza is also another one of those knives that packs a lot of blade length into not very much handle. The Malibu does have a little bit more blade length to it, and the Malibu is just a little bit bigger overall. So I would say this was a knife that'd be perfectly fine to carry as a primary EDC, so I'm happy with that. Some people that have bigger hands, they'll probably want to carry something more around that 3.5 inch blade length, around the size of a Sabinza or maybe a PM2, something along those lines. But overall, this is a perfect size for me. Gives me definitely enough blade for my regular tasks. Now for the anatomy of it, what is built up of. This is made by Protech in America. The price, it was like right at $200, and I got it from River's Edge Cutlery, that booth over there, because I think they were sold out at the Protech booth, or maybe they weren't selling them there, I'm not sure. But it was about $215 after tax there, and the blade finish, it's a stonewash reverse tanto. This is the one that I wanted. It's got black aluminum handles, a deep carry pocket clip, a right hand tip up only deep carry pocket clip. I would still say this is a lefty friendly knife, but you know, there is nothing for lefties. Honestly, I really like the look of the show side scale. It looks very clean, and it would throw off the look if there was, you know, a grooved pocket here and 2 holes for a pocket clip. Sorry lefties, I guess I'm just cruel like that. Anything else to say about the construction of this? Well, it's a flipper deployment like you've seen, and it is a manual button lock from Protech. Usually they make automatic knives. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this. Let me get out my other Protech, the SBR. So they usually make automatic knives like that, and they do a really good job at them, but they have made some manual ones like the Malibu, the Mordax, and there was another one that's kind of older, but yeah, they do make some manuals, and they do a pretty good job at it. So now for the looks of this knife, I was really happy that I was able to get this configuration because this is the main one that I wanted. Reverse tanto, I just like the looks of it better than the Wharncliffe. I still believe that the Wharncliffe was probably a great blade shape, but this one, I just like the look of it a little bit more. I like that it's not completely a straight edge. You get a little bit of slicing ability with still a thin point for your detail work. It reminds me a lot of this Insingo blade shape. It's not as, you know, curved as the Insingo, but it's just a gradual curve over time. And I think that that's very effective for your utility cuts because you have this thin tip that is very low, and you can still do a good job slicing with it because that belly that is throughout the blade. Now, or one thing to touch on for the looks is the finish on the aluminum. Now, I haven't carried this enough to see how it will wear, but I do know on my SBR, I haven't really been impressed by how this aluminum finish has held up. As you can see kind of the wear marks here and just around it, and in some lighting, there's kind of scratches that you can see almost like snail trails. Not that big of a deal because I've had this knife for a while and I'm happy that it looks beat up and used. But for example, this Protech LUDT, I've carried this a lot more than my SBR, and I mean, you can hardly see a scratch on this aluminum, so it is what it is. Doesn't really bother me all that much, but I know a lot of people, you know, they might just want to try this knife out, see what it's like, and then maybe sell it, and it might get scratched up easy. I can't definitively say anything now, but you know, I guess we'll just have to see with some use. This is a coated pocket clip, which I think it looks good. I like dark clips because I usually wear darker pants, and so that doesn't show up as well, which I mean, it doesn't bother me. I don't think anyone's gonna freak out if I have a knife on me. I just don't really live in a part where people think like that, which I guess I'm lucky, but anyway, I could see that clips maybe scratching up some, but I don't know how this is coated on here. Now let's talk about the blade. So I already touched on the blade shape a little bit, that I do like it. But for the thickness behind the edge, or no, first let me talk about why I haven't sharpened this yet. And that is because I wanted to show off this factory grind because it is just not very good on here. Take a look at this side here. You might be able to see how this kind of flares up at the end. So I could see maybe after my first sharpening or the sharpening after that flaring up some more and maybe creating a smile. I might do a video kind of sharpening this, seeing how this 20 CV feels. I think that would be a fun video to make, but you know, sometimes sharpening videos, they just don't work out for me because they're harder to do and be a smoother production than it is like I'm doing right now. But looking at this other side, you can see it might be hard to show up on camera, but this bevel is much fatter over here than it is on this side. And especially in this area, it is fatter than down here. And especially at the tip, it really thins out. So the grind on this is just not very symmetrical. And that's one issue that I've seen with Protech. This SBR, I got this reground by Alex Steingraber, where now it's 10 thousandths behind the edge, and I really like that. It's a lot more good of a knife, but you can see this is a small knife. This is something that I would not really carry as a primary knife, just because, you know, it's kind of hard for me to comfortably get all four of my fingers on here. My pinky just kind of goes right there, and also, the blade shape just isn't very big for, I might need a bigger blade shape, which sometimes I don't. I just don't feel as comfortable with this as the only knife in my pocket. So I would classify this as a small EDC knife, and this thing was 27 or like 26 thousandths behind the edge from the factory, which is just overly thick and it makes no sense. Some people might say, oh yeah, this is the Rockeye, kind of like a small Rockeye from Les George, which is a hard use based design. But for me, it's just, this is a small knife. You're not going to be beating it up. It is built very strong. It has a good build quality to it, but still 26 thousandths is way too thick. And this one is a little bit on the thicker side. Let me get a quick measurement on here. So looking at this, it is thinner towards the base. This is the thinnest part of the knife. We were looking at about 17 thousandths, which I first measured that and I was like, yes, thank you, Protech. But then towards this middle area here, it thickens quite a bit. We're looking at 25 thousandths right in that middle area. Let me get a measurement kind of close to that, just make sure I'm measuring correctly. So 22 thousandths, let me measure that again. Sorry that this is taking a while, I just feel like it's important. So yeah, that 25 thousandths, I might have had my calipers a little bit too far back on the primary grind there. So we're about 23 thousandths in the middle, and then at the tip, it thins out to about 20 thousandths. So that is good, but it's just the unevenness in this grind, the asymmetry that it has, that kind of gets on my nerves. And I feel like this is a knife that, like I said, it's small, it's simple. They're probably, like, maybe I could see people using this as kind of a hard use EDC knife. That's something I classify as, you know, an everyday carry knife that you use for just a bunch of different stuff around the house. I put the Gale Bradley 2 in that category. I put my SPK Sasquatch in that category. So I could see a lot of people using it for that. So I would like it to be thinner, and I just would like that grind to be symmetrical on there. And Protech they just kind of struggle with their grinds. I think that that is the main improvement that they can make. I did a video a long time ago on who makes the better automatic knife, Microtech or Protech, and honestly Protech wins in fit and finish and build quality, but Microtech, I had them winning just for the fact that their knives are ground a lot thinner and they just do a better job with the grind on this. And it's just kind of annoying that Protech, I mean, I just feel like they need to fix their grinds. And yeah, that's about all I gotta say. Also, this sharpening choil here, you can see that already starting to flare a bit. It's not really doing it on this side. I actually got to try like 3 of these at Blade Show, and this was the best blade that I saw. So for the issues that it has, you know, there were some worse ones out there. But it's just one of those things where, I don't know, I just hope that they start paying attention to that. I think all knives need to be ground thinner, and even though 20 thousandths, you know, it was like 17 or 18 thousandths toward the base, that is good. Just the unevenness kind of gets on my nerves, and especially sharpening, it's going to be kind of difficult to deal with. Now let's talk about the fit and finish and the ergonomics of this. Oh wait, no, let's just talk about the fit and finish first off. 2 separate categories. So the fit and finish, build quality of it, Protech, they do a great job. Centering on this is good. I really like how it seems like it's almost an integral. I know it's not, but this back spacer is 2 separate pieces. There is like a seam in the middle of them, but really it just looks good. I think that they do a good job with this. They don't have standoffs that are obvious, which it wouldn't really bother me if they did. And also, I like that this hardware is hidden on this side, or I don't even think it's hidden. I just think that these thread all the way through. These are Allen keys for the body screw and an Allen key for the pivot here. It looks like Torx on the stop pin screw and Torx on these body clips or on these pocket clip screws. But yeah, I'm overall fine with it. Fin finish is good. Build quality is nice. I feel no blade play. I might feel a little bit of slop in the button lock. I think that's a thing with button locks. Just a tiny bit of up and down. But this thing, it seems like a secure lockup. No issues with it failing, so I'm fine with that. Yeah, button locks, they're an interesting locking mechanisms. It seems like a lot of people love them. I do like them. I think that they're good. As you can see, how they work, I think it is interesting that there is kind of a spring pressing this, and then this side of the blade is pressing it down, and then there's a little bit of a cutout down there, and so it's no longer pressing it down. That spring pushes that button up, and then it kind of just goes onto that blade, keeping it from coming down. But then when you press this button back in, it's no longer touching the blade, allowing the blade to drop. It's definitely an innovative locking mechanism, really easy to operate one-handed, so I like that part about it. And I think it is a good locking mechanism, but sometimes I just like my good old titanium frame locks and liner locks. I guess there's no real reason for that. The button lock is probably a better locking mechanism for ease of opening and closing and strength. I don't really know how they compare with strength, but yeah, that's just my thoughts about it. Now for the ergonomics. The ergonomics are very good. There really only is one thing that I think might be a concern for some of you guys out there. So one thing I like about the ergonomics is just how simple they are. There's no jimping on this knife. There is this jimping right here on the back spacer kind of thing, but it's really not a back spacer, just kind of part of the aluminum. But you don't feel it unless you press down and your skin goes on it. And when you do that, it's not even sharp. Like, I don't even feel it like this. My only issue with the ergos is that you don't have as much handle as I thought you would. Honestly, my hands, I feel like they're decently big, but my fingers are just thinner than a lot of people, so I can fit my fingers on this knife. But as you can see, just looking at it, my hands go out wider than this grip allows. My fingers are just pressed in, which is what a lot of people do. But if you have thicker fingers, I could see you only being able to get like 3.5 fingers on this knife, and that might just be a deal breaker for some of you guys. I'd suggest trying to get this one in hand if that may be an issue for you, but I know some people might not be able to when they do that. One thing that I thought was a little bit interesting is this chamfer, how it goes like that. And as you can see, it almost looks like there's finger grooves, but there's really just this one here, and then it is straight. One interesting thing about this finger groove is, like I said, I have thin fingers, but I feel like it's a little bit too small for my finger. As you can see, when I put it up like that, that little divot right there is kind of poking in. It's very rounded off and not sharp, so it's not an issue. I just wonder why they didn't extend that finger choil out a little bit like you see on the Sebenza here. I mean, this isn't even that much of a choil, but just looking at the lock bar access, it's a little bit bigger. You know, I always bring out the Sebenza to compare to other knives just because that's kind of my favorite knife and what I compare to everything else. I don't want to seem like I'm comparing a $550 knife to a $200 knife and saying, oh, this is just so much better, this is bad. This is what I compare it to, and that's just kind of what I do. One thing, I already pointed out the no jimping. The pocket clip, I do not feel that in my hand. For this saber grip, I might towards the back, but for the hammer grip, I'm good. I like it because you can kind of pinch it up here and do cuts like that, or you can just stay back here and do cuts like that, which I'm a fan of. This blade shape really aids well, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it aids in, like, the ergonomics mixed with the blade shape really go good together, which I like. Smaller knife, you can get a pinch grip and do cuts like this. Overall, good ergos. I am happy with them. The only issue I could see is if you have some sausage fingers, you might not be able to get all 4 of them on there. Let's talk about the carry. So this Protech pocket clip, I actually said this recently, or no, a while ago, but this Protech deep carry clip, I believe, is the best deep carry clip on the market. Screws are recessed. Pocket clip is recessed in there where there's a cutout for the clip, so that's not protruding either. I do kind of like your standard spring clip where I have a little bit to grab onto. I just like that a little bit more because I'm not concerned about, oh, someone maybe seeing the knife in my pocket and being scared. You know, I don't really run into issues like that. But this does hide very well. It conceals very deep, and my only issue with the deep carry clips is that when I pull it out, I feel like I'm holding it like this. A lot of people just say put a lanyard on it. I might do that. This lanyard hole is pretty small there. Maybe I could fit I don't think I could fit 550 paracord in there. There's some 550 here. Yeah, I don't think that is going to work. No, it's not going to work. So maybe if you have some thinner cord, you could fit a lanyard in there. I might have to experiment with that a little bit. But overall, carry is good. Let me get a weight on this thing. We are looking at, wow, that's actually really good. 3.1 ounces. I am surprised with that. Let me compare that to my SBR. I just got the scale recently, so I like weighing it. So yeah, really not much of a difference between these two knives, both around that 3 ounce mark. And I've been comparing it to the small Sebenza a lot. And this one, oh, I didn't know the small Sebenza was that light. Wow, I'm shocked. But then the Para 3, PM2, we're looking close to that 4 ounce mark, 3.8, just about that. So overall, very impressed with the weight of this knife. I can carry this in lightweight shorts, which if I can carry a knife in lightweight shorts, don't really run into any issues with it there. Now let's move on to the action of this. So what I plan on doing for my full review is I plan on just saying, you know, everyone always talks about the action of this knife. I don't care about it that much, so I'm just not going to talk about it at all. That's what I plan on doing for my full review. But for this first impressions, I will talk about it, I guess. And I will say, I don't care about the action. Let me say this before. I really just care if it's a flipper, does it open reliably? And does it close with some ease? You know, if I have to go like that, I'm fine with it. I don't really care. Action doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but I will say, this is very, very good with the action on here, and I actually found myself playing with this knife. You can see it's very easy to open. One issue with some button lock flippers is sometimes the detent is a little bit too weak on this, but it is very easy to deploy this knife and really easy to open and close, which I like. Pretty much you just push this button in and the blade drops, so that is really good. It's running on bearings. I prefer washers, but this is kind of my unpopular opinion about bearings versus phosphor bronze versus Teflon. My unpopular opinion is I don't care what's in my knife. I'm not really working out in the desert or anything like that, so I don't run into issues with them gunking up. But usually bearings, I just run them dry. I don't really run any KPL in there, and they seem to work fine for me. Maybe there's some oil on this from the factory, but we'll just have to find out in the future if it kind of gunks up very easy. But overall action is very good. I'm sure if you've seen a Malibu review from someone, they've kind of raved about the action for like 10 minutes, which is kind of why I got frustrated and why I just wanted to know, how does this thing cut? How did it sharpen? How does it feel in hand? How does it carry? So hopefully I'll be able to accomplish that with my review. And I'm not trying to say that all the other reviews on this Malibu are bad just because I saw some initial ones. You know, I haven't seen every single one out there, so I'm not calling out any YouTuber in specific. But now let's talk about the value. So $200 for this, that's a very good value. I'm happy with that. Protech, I think that they have some of the most potential. If you ask me, what companies are you looking at the most right now that you think can make the biggest impact on the knife community, I would have to say two of them, and that's Protech and Hogue. Also, this American Blade Works, but it's just a small company, so I wouldn't include it. I guess the larger companies, but Protech and Hogue, they're both American made, and I really feel like what they have to work on, or I'll just talk about Protech. What Protech has to work on is their grinds, getting them thinner, which this one is thinner than my SBR, so I'm happy with that, but getting them more symmetrical. For example, I follow BGM Knives on Instagram. He makes custom knives and does regrinds, and he had a Protech, and he was just saying how bad the grind was and that it was really messed up. And even though these are ground on CNC machines, they should be symmetrical. They just aren't. So yeah, that's just my issues with Protech, and I really think other than that, I mean, if they heat treated this 20 CV right, they got one heck of a knife. I just wish that it was ground a little bit thinner, and maybe just this plunge grind worked on a little bit too. But that's about all I got for this video. Overall, the value, I think so far, I'm going to say it is good. Maybe things will change by my full review. I don't know. I'm thinking about doing a sharpening video with this knife, so maybe be on the lookout for that. Still not positive if I'm going to do it or not. But overall, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you are new. And I'll see you guys in the next one.